So hello, Cobain the Christian. Yeah, I was very happy to run across your video and stumble onto your channel. Yeah, anybody who hasn't checked this guy out, he's worth checking out. He's a 14-year-old super genius, and his videos are just out of this world. I'm just so impressed. So yeah, please, if you haven't seen him before, go check his vids out. Any rate, I saw your video on 1 Corinthians 15, and I just had to respond. First of all, it's like, yes, 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 congratulations. I've been listening to so many theist, anti-theist debates, pro-con Christian debates, and I've always been wondering, why don't the Christians bring up 1 Corinthians 15? I mean, this is their best case. Yeah, if there's anything in the world, I mean, this really is the best chance that the Christians have of actually proving that Christ rose from the dead. So, yes, thank you very much for bringing this up. And I wonder aloud why it took a 14-year-old super genius to bring this one up. I don't understand why I haven't seen this before on YouTube. But anyway, yes, thanks so much. So, yeah, so my response. So fair warning, I'm going to ultimately conclude that 1 Corinthians 15 does not support belief in the resurrection of Christ from the dead. I am an atheist, right? So just to let you know where I'm coming from. But before I make the case against it, right, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the case as strong as I can for it. So for the rest of this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the strongest possible case that I can make for Christianity. And I'm going to use 1 Corinthians 15 as the strongest possible piece of evidence that the Christians have that Jesus Christ actually did rise from the dead. Okay? And at the end of the video, I'm going to make two basic conclusions. The first conclusion is that the early Christians really believed that Christ rose from the dead. And the second conclusion is the early Christians really had a good reason to believe that Christ rose from the dead. Okay, so basically, this video is going to try to persuade everybody that Christianity isn't just a mushroom cult. All right, so yeah, they actually had good reasons to believe it. Okay, so in part two of this response, I'll explain why. I really don't believe that the argument carries all the way through, and that there's still room for being an atheist after this. And also explain why I think really the whole argument kind of misses the point. The real point really has been missed by your video. But, I mean, before you deconstruct, you've got to construct. So in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the strongest possible case for Christianity that I possibly can. Okay, so let's talk about 1 Corinthians for a while. Now, when everybody thinks of the New Testament, they always think of the Gospels, but I really think that the letter of 1 Corinthians is the gem of the New Testament. It deserves a lot more attention than what it gets. So what is it? Well, first of all, it's a real letter. Okay, so it's a letter by Paul and an associate of his by the name of Sosthenes, who together wrote this letter to a church at Corinth to address some problems that were going on in the church of Corinth and to really encourage them to live the righteous life. Now, how do we know that this is a real letter? All right, there's several things. I mean, we have thousands of letters surviving from the Roman period, and the form and the content of this letter, it looks exactly like any other letter that you'd possibly see from the Roman period. I mean, there's nothing about it that stands out as being obvious forgery or anything. Also, we have very, very old textual manuscripts from this. Let me just show you a page from a codex called P46. So, as you can see, this copy is very well preserved, and it dates from within 150 years of when Paul and Sosthenes actually wrote it. In addition, there's all kinds of quotations from this letter and other manuscripts and stuff. There's really a lot of evidence pointing in favor of it. In addition, we actually have some archaeological evidence. Paul mentions at the end of the letter to the Romans that there was a fellow by the name of Erastus who was the treasurer at the city of Corinth. And interestingly enough, we actually found a stone which dates from the time period where Paul wrote this letter to the Corinthians, which has the name of Erastus on it. So let me just show you a picture of that. The inscription on this stone reads, "Erastus, Commissioner of Public Works, laid this pavement at his own expense." So Erastus is kind of a common name, so obviously this isn't conclusive or anything. Nothing can be proved with 100% certainty. But here's the kicker. Okay, we have a lot of evidence in favor of the authenticity of this letter, and we really have zero evidence against the authenticity of this letter. I mean, we can say with as much certainty as we can say about almost any historical event that it actually happened. This was a real letter written by Paul and Sosthenes to a real congregation at a church at Corinth. So, given that this is a real letter and it's a genuine information that we're dealing with here, what does this letter actually say? Well, it's a long letter and deals with a lot of different topics. But what is germane to this particular discussion is that in this letter, Paul really makes his best case for Christianity. I mean, this is pretty much what he told the Greco-Roman world, which revolutionized the Western culture forever, right? This is really what converted, I mean, killed the pagan gods and everything. This message that you're about to hear right now. Okay, so this is worth actually going over to the blackboard and writing it down. 1 Corinthians 15, verses 3 through 8. For what I received I passed on to you as of first importance, that Christ died for our sins according to the Scriptures, that he was buried, that he was raised on the third day according to the Scriptures, and that he appeared to Peter, and then to the 12. After that, he appeared to more than 500 of the brothers at the same time, most of whom are still living, though some have fallen asleep. Then he appeared to James, then to all the apostles. And last of all, he appeared to me also, as one abnormally born. I mean, wow, what a remarkable claim, eh? Yeah, I hope you noticed that a little bit towards the end there. Paul himself actually claims to have seen the resurrected Christ, right? In fact, he's the only person in the New Testament that we have, in fact, the only person anywhere who writes in his own voice saying, I actually saw Jesus Christ after he was crucified, and he was alive. So, yeah, but despite that, I mean, what we have here in 1 Corinthians is very solid evidence that not just Paul, not just the 12 apostles, but literally hundreds of people had seen the resurrected Christ. Hundreds of people were going around the ancient Greco-Roman world here, and they were claiming that, they had actually seen Christ raised from the dead. Okay? So, this really is the best piece of evidence the Christians have. So let me just summarize in a capsule summary what I think are the strongest conclusions that we can draw from this. So here's a summary of the claims which I believe can be historically verified. So yeah, not every historian agrees with all of these claims. I mean, you can always find somebody who disputes it. But, okay, the number of historians who actually dispute these claims is less than the number of physicists who believe in a so-called intelligent design, okay? The burden of evidence does support them. The soberest of historians, in fact, the vast majority of historians will agree with all of these claims. Okay, so here they are. First claim, 1 Corinthians is a real letter, really written by Paul to a real congregation, and it has come down to us largely textually intact. Okay? The second claim, Paul really believed that he saw the Christ, right? Third claim, the apostles really believed that they saw the Christ. And in fact, there were hundreds of people who claimed that they saw the Christ. So, the early Christian church really wasn't a mushroom cult. The people who joined the early Christian church, they really had good evidence to believe that Jesus Christ really did resurrect from the dead. Now, I'm sure all of my theist friends are wondering, and maybe a few of my atheist friends are also wondering this, right? They're wondering, what? Slam dunk, dude. I mean, it's like, what more could you possibly want? Why aren't you a Christian? Why don't you believe that Jesus Christ actually resurrected from the dead? Well, I mean, in point of fact, I'm still not convinced by this evidence. And if you're curious why, I invite you to check out the second video in this series. See you then.